Hello, my name is Ilya Antipin. I'm a head of technology consulting in EPAM Systems, and today we have a conversation with Gireesh from Dawn Foods. Could you maybe start with describing your position, what you do at Dawn?
Hi, Ilya. My name is Gireesh Sahukar. I'm the VP of Digital at Dawn Foods. I oversee all of our customer-facing digital initiatives at Dawn. What that means is our corporate brand marketing sites, our e-commerce, and anything associated with those technologies, platforms, and business to drive that forward.
Great. So you're definitely the right person to discuss composable commerce.
Sounds like it.
So let's start from the beginning, the very beginning of your story. Before you your company decided to embark on that journey, right, to digitize and modernize and do this digital transformation towards composable market architectures, what was the underlying business drivers? What was the force which pressed you in this direction?
Back in 2017, 2018 timeframe, the company was going through a strategic evaluation. They were asking themselves, this was before I joined Dawn, they were asking themselves, what is the future of Dawn Foods going to look like? As the company was coming up on 100 years of being in business, they were questioning what that future 100 years would look like and how Dawn would show up with its customers in that future. So I give the company a lot of credit. It understood that it needed to change and evolve and update to modern times in a lot of different areas. So as they built the strategy and looked at executing that strategy, they created a bunch of work streams to go execute the various strategic initiatives. They all started executing, but then they got to the point where they were around the same time, they were all asking the same question. This was in 2018. They were all asking, hey, what do we do about this self-service thing? Our customers are saying that we should give them self-service capabilities, but the company did not know what it really meant, what shape it would take, how to go about it. So it worked with a few outside advisors and then decided to hire a chief digital officer based on their advice. And that's how Dawn created a new role and brought in Bob Howland as the chief digital officer, who in turn looked at all the research and all the data that the teams had collected and said, we need to go in the direction of e-commerce, so we need to bring in some e-commerce experts. And he recruited me to join him in 2019. So we got started there. Building the self-service capabilities, which took the form of a B2B e-commerce solution. When I got to Dawn and looked at what we had as technologies internally, and we started looking at what can we use for e-commerce, we really didn't have any technologies whatsoever on the e-commerce side of things. At that point, we did not have e-commerce. So we decided to go out and look at the marketplace and try to understand who are the players, who are leading in the market, what are they offering, who are the emerging players, and what are they, what is their philosophies here. What we got out of that was there distinctly was the group of monolith vendors, and then a emerging list of ISVs that were all preaching a new approach, which was based on APIs and API-driven communication, and allowing the customers to make a lot of architectural decisions and be in charge and in the driver's seat about their own digital destinies. That resonated with us because we were looking for a way to take our self-service option solution that our customers wanted and say, we need to own this digital journey. We need to own the relationship between our customers and us, and we also need to own our destiny. It cannot rely on a third-party roadmap. We want to be delivering the capabilities that our customers need when they need them, and at the velocity that our customers need them, or slightly ahead, so that they can adapt as the need becomes apparent for them. So when we looked at all that, we ended up with the composable approach, wherein we said, even the monolith vendors at the time, when we did our initial meetings, said they are working on making sure their platform was API ready, API compliant, API blank, insert your own verb and adventure. So it was very clear that in the marketplace, all the software companies were saying the same thing. They were telling us that APIs are going to be the way e-commerce will work in the future. And so we said, let's take a step back. Let's look at what the world looks like in this API-driven architecture. Let's drop that architecture. And then we'll figure out what we can do. So we created an architecture that allowed us to say, how does this look in API to API communication ecosystem? What are the different mechanisms that we communicate today, and how do they change in this API exclusive world? And we built that architecture. Then we asked ourselves, who are the software companies and vendors today that fit into this architecture? That is how we got started with a composable stack.
Interesting. I love your quote about owning your own destiny. I think this is very beautiful testament to composable. But what I like about your particular case is that there are many enterprises right now on the path of this restructuring the monolith or going composable or going mark architecture. The Dawn Foods already actually implemented that, right? So you've been running those platforms for a while right now. So you actually have experience, and that is very valuable, I think. So I wanted to talk to you about that. Like, for example, what was the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge was, in the composable world, you need to have a strong architectural team to help create that foundational architecture, because 85% of a new platform implementation is done in the very, very early stages when you're doing the design phase and architectural decisions are made then. With the monolith world, a lot of those decisions were made by the software vendor, right? You got the package, you installed it, and you started using it. Most of those decisions that we had to make were, what's our product data model? In a monolith world, that was predefined. You got the model and you used as it was given to you. Here, we had to define the model. We had to make sure that that model would work in many different contexts, like whether it is in e-commerce, whether it is in content management, whether it is search, whether it is PIM, right? You have to define model that works across all systems, and you have to make sure that it fits your business, right? So data is basically a digital modeling of your business. So you need to take your business and model it and get the data architecture out of it, and then go implement that across all the systems. So that requires a lot of understanding of how these various composable systems and platforms operate, and what you need to know about them, what are the limits, what are some of the barriers, and how do you either work around the barriers, or how do you work to make sure that you don't run into any of the limitations. And as the platforms grow, obviously some of these limitations go away. But at the same time, you need to understand, just because there's a limit doesn't mean you want to move all the way up to the limit, right? Just because a commerce tools will allow you to create a 1,000,000-line order does not mean you should do it, right? Because there are other implications. There are speed, throughput, performance implications. All those things need to be balanced, and you come out on the other side saying, here are some of the standards, here are some of the SLAs, SLOs that we're going to define, that we're going to adhere, and that's what we're going to measure and make sure we manage to. So all of those things are done very, very early in the project. So you need to have good enterprise architecture teams or enterprise architects on your team that can help you define those kind of frameworks, that way of thinking and designing solution, so that you can run very far into your future like that on a composable stack.
Meaning that the mistakes done on the earlier strategy phase can be really costly downside if you go the composable road, right?
I would say it slightly differently. I think you're getting to the sense of it. What I would say is you want to minimize the amount of rework you have to do, right? It may be easy, it may be not very strategically catastrophic, so to speak, but at the same time, it is time and resources, and most companies have limited time and limited resources, right? So redo anything like that, anything that is that foundational, especially if you discover something after a year or 2 years, you've built a lot of things on top, right? In that intervening time period. So making those kind of changes at the foundational level become harder. And they are more time consuming, and essentially you're sort of in a state where you've gotten the best of breed solution, but you've implemented it the wrong way. So you then have to sort of pivot and try to figure out how do you right size.
And you mentioned that the company is 100 years old, so you don't have some history. Going through those transformation process and implementing all those new platforms, how did that impact your business, if anyhow?
It was a whole business effort, right? E-commerce typically connects various functions of your business. It connects marketing, it connects sales, it connects customer service, it connects supply chain, all to one singular view that you present to your customer, right? If you didn't have e-commerce, you didn't know what that world looked like, where all of these different functions were exposed like that to a customer in one single frame, in one single view. So in a company like ours, where we did not have e-commerce, where all these functions could have and would have operated in their own silos without needing to operate and collaborate with each other, the biggest change was to understand that, we now need to collaborate. We now need to get closer to each other in an operating model, and that change management was the biggest effort. For every hour we wrote code, we probably spent 2 hours doing change management. And I think we did not spend enough time on change management. We probably should have spent 2 more hours for every hour of coding on change management, because that was a significant effort that it's ongoing even today. With e-commerce, we are constantly giving our team members new insights, new understanding, coaching, learning skills, right? So all of that skilling, reskilling, upskilling efforts, that is an enormous change in an organization. So e-commerce impacts a lot of what you do with your people. And you need to recognize that, you need to understand that, and you need to put the change management plan together before you roll out e-commerce. And that's really what we did.
Interesting. So if you take a look back when you just started all that, and imagine you took a monolith approach, right? And do you think you could be successful? What would you gain and what would you lose in that situation?
I think what we would lose is the agility, right? We couldn't respond to some of the things that we were able to respond and able to pivot into fairly rapidly. When all the supply chain constraints happened, we were able to immediately pivot and immediately put solutions in place that didn't take a lot of time. With a monolith, that would have been a much longer time frame. And on the other end, what essentially you're experiencing is a lot of customers getting very frustrated that they were not getting their orders. They were not getting the core items that they needed for keeping their business open and running, right? So by being able to provide the technology solutions, we were enabling our business and our customers' businesses to be running and to be able to function in a fairly difficult time frame.
That's interesting. So you implemented your platform, it's working, it creates lots of value and benefit for the company. What is your next step? Is your transformation is over, or what is like next journey?
Yeah, we talk about what we've done as a digital journey internally and externally as well. This is not a transformation. There's not a start and end to it, right? This is an ongoing journey. The journey is the important thing to understand here. There's not a destination here because on the other side of this is your customer. And the customer is always evolving, changing, and learning new things, and getting different skills that they're learning, right? So you have to keep up with your customer. You have to lead your customer to a better future. So in that sense, we're constantly evolving. We are adding capabilities. We're looking at what is it that we are doing in our ecosystem, and within our business, how are we operating in different areas, and how do we make sure that we can bring those different processes and embed some of the data insights that we get from e-commerce, and how do we improve those processes over time, right? We are looking at a bunch of systems now in e-commerce generating a lot of data. There's valuable data there. We've got enterprise systems that have always had data. We've got systems that have their own machine data, right? And you and I talked about this about a year ago. What do we do? How do we make sense of all of this data that are in silos? How do we bring them together? How do we extract the insights that are hidden and deeply embedded in this data? How do we extract that, surface it, and put it in our customers' hands and in our team members' hands at the right moment to enable the right conversations, to deliver the right value proposition for the customers, for our team members, for our business? What do we need to do, right? So that is going to be the future, right? The e-commerce was only the starter, if you will.
The foundation.
It's the beginning of it, but the data is what starts to drive more and more of this journey.
Yeah, data definitely an important asset. And we're all talking about AI nowadays and upcoming like LLM revolution, generative AI. Do you think your industry particularly will be disrupted by that technology?
If there is a good AI that you know of that can grow wheat, sugar, corn, soybeans, whatever it is, send that AI my way. We would love it because there's so much talk of AI, but what we forget is in the physical goods space, especially in ag tech kind of business like ours, where we need raw materials that are dependent on nature, right? It's dependent on agriculture. So there's only so much AI can do in that space.
Definitely. But speaking about supply chain and user experience and all that, are you looking to embed those capabilities? Because being composable and having such a modern architecture stack, you're like well positioned in the market to adopt those new technologies first, right?
We have embedded AI in several areas. On the selling side of things, we do recommendations that are AI generated based on customer history, customer behavior, and some other key concepts. Around all of that, we are using AI in demand planning, inventory forecasting, and measuring throughput and things like that. We are leveraging some AI-based tools for our supply chain, route planning, and operational optimizations and stuff like that. So there are various areas where we have tools and technologies that have embedded AI that have made a pretty significant difference. And Gen AI is just the latest flavor of AI. Right? There have been machine learning models that have been in place forever in some of these tools that we've used. We're also looking at we've built this machine learning model that'll predict to some level of confidence when in the next 120 days a customer might churn away from Dawn, from being a customer to stopping doing business with us. So understanding that in a very near future, within the next 4 months, this customer may no longer be doing business with us, right? Knowing that, we can decide if we want to take any actions to retain that customer or to make some changes in our approach with that customer so that we don't either lose the customer or we mitigate the loss. So we've got that in place. We are working through all the actions like that on how to present, how to surface, how to have the right conversations. So AI will give you the data, right? You still have to do the work to figure out what is it that you're going to do after the AI is done doing its work.
It's very impressive. Last question, maybe a bit personal. Do you use AI, like generative AI, in your day-to-day job?
That's a great question. When OpenAI released the OpenAI mobile app, I changed the side button on my phone to open OpenAI app instead of muting the phone. So it's there. It's one tap away. So I use it quite often, quite regularly on a lot of different things. Most of the time it may not be something interesting, and I'm not really looking to believe everything OpenAI or ChatGPT will tell me, but it's a starting point for beginning to frame an answer or frame thoughts, or if it's a fairly straightforward thing, like what's the weather like there, right, or something like that. It's very simple. Those kind of things are fairly easy, so you can trust the answer. But hallucinations, as you know, is a real thing, and you have to guard against it. So on more difficult, more complicated kind of questions, you really want to cross-check and double-check what a ChatGPT will tell you. But there are use cases where it does really well, and it can give you a lot of great information in a really millisecond response times, right? So in those kind of things, in those kind of use cases, it can do some really good things. Just uploading your contacts and asking ChatGPT to tell you, who are the 10 contacts in this town that I'm visiting that I should go talk to, right? You could try and sort your contacts and try to find it, or ChatGPT will let it do, and it could really plan your entire trip to another city.
That's great. Well, thank you, Gireesh. That was really good conversation.
Thanks, Ilya.